But we're learning so much more because they wanted to make it seem like this Twitch star, Kai Cenat, a Twitch streamer who has 100,000 followers who actually pay $5 a month to hear him sit in his crib with his homies, homegirls, and homeboys, thugs and thugettes, in their crib, their home, the McMansion in Atlanta, and just talk gibberish. That's all they do. He's not a rapper. He's not an entertainer. He's not an R&B star. That's all they do is they talk gibberish. And apparently he has developed quite the following, 5.5 million on Instagram, 4 million on YouTube. But the money is in it on Twitch streaming, in which suckers pay money. Sometimes, Lou, to actually just watch him sleep. He keeps the button on and keeps getting the clicks. I mean, that is crazy. But now we're finding out that this was premeditated. This was pre-planned because this Kai Cenat, while streaming to his many degenerate fans, was saying, we're going to go crazy, bro, days before he set it off in Union Square. But before I get into the details of this premeditated plan to create chaos, which it certainly did, on Friday afternoon, let's hear from Jeffrey Maddrey. He's chief of the Department of the City of New York's police, a guy I don't like, I don't think should be there. But, boy, he was in the epicenter of the beehive, the wasp hive, as these young thugs and thugettes started circling him in the white shirts and started to go on the attack, driving them right into Whole Foods. Now, Jeffrey Maddrey, I don't know, something wrong with his leg. And some of these white shirts, you know, they need to get into the gym. They got their bellies hanging over their gun belts. And these young thugs and thugettes who average age is 13 to 18 just bum rush these white shirts, especially Jeffrey Maddrey, who was telling them to cease and desist, and they basically flipped the bird at him and threw everything they could get their hands on. Luckily, some of his fellow police officers found a piece of plywood and shielded him because they just had a relentless assault of flying projectiles at him. If not for that piece of plywood, he would have been knocked out for the count. This was him hours after the nightmare in Union Square.
And we had to be very, very delicate in how we handled this. All right, we wanted the kids to just comply with us and leave, but we were met with a lot of resistance. We were attacked. My older brother just called and told me he saw a video of me getting hit in the head. I'm not against young people coming here. If we knew about this, we could have the barriers out here, we could have police officers out here. People broke into the park and they began to throw articles that belong to the construction site, paint cans, bottles, rocks. We had people walking around with shovels, axes.
And there was more. Once they were cleared out of the park because the white shirts couldn't do it. They were out of shape. Then they called in cops from the 13th precinct, none of them wearing hats. Obviously, they took the nightsticks away from the cops a long time ago. They're not intimidating at all. Thugs and thugettes going in and out of the police in uniform, blue uniforms from the 13th precinct. And then finally, they called in the tactical patrol force, guys and gals who had the hats and bats. Now, it suggests that we need to go to old school ways. Every car in the police department should have the hats and bats in the trunk just for such occasions. They don't do that. They have the Special Tactical Patrol Force. And these are guys and gals, you can tell, they've spent a lot of time in the gym. They're flexing, they're gigantors. They got the tats. They look intimidating. And that's when the crowd started to clear out of Union Square. But instead of just dissipating into Manhattan or getting on a subway station somewhere else because the subway lines were closed at Union Square, they continued their marauding ways down South Broadway, attacking the restaurant sheds, kicking in windows, graffitiing, just total chaos. I'm saying to myself, wait, okay, and so you catch this guy Kai Cenat. You bring him to the 19th precinct on 67th Street, and you give him a desk appearance ticket, a DAT, which is a disappearance ticket. You charge him with incitement to riot. Justin, there are like almost 1,000 people who were charged with inciting to riot on January 6th, and rightfully so. Some of them are still in jail. This guy gets a disappearance ticket, and they say, show back up on August 18th. All he's going to get out of this is more clicks, more money, more suckers paying to get online with him, the Twitch stream, which they got to pay $5 a month. He'll probably up the price now that he's even more infamous. So this is Alvin Bragg land. He cut him loose. What he should have done was remand him to jail and no bail. Rikers Island. In fact, he could have given him the who dat cell, which is PC, Protective Custody, Punk City. That was Lil Wayne's cell. He was there for 7 months. He had an illegal handgun on him, and the guy used to cry in his cell, actually wrote in his memoirs. He was crying like a little baby. Yeah. So put him in there. He's 21 years old. So let's see what the mayor had to say, who, by the way, did not show up that day. He was too busy cutting a ribbon at the grand opening of an Ethiopian restaurant on Fulton Street in Brooklyn, acting like the Brooklyn Borough president, the Biden of Brooklyn. It's like, hey, guy, you should have rushed right to the scene. He didn't. But the next day, he decided to pontificate on what caused the nightmare in Union Square. First, he blamed social networking.
Our children cannot be raised by social media. Our children cannot get their values, their beliefs from social media and other outside entities.
So we went through this once before with Eric Adams, who tries to act hip and fly, and really he's not. In fact, he said the first thing he did when he was cutting the ribbon to that Ethiopia restaurant was text his son, Jordan, who's in his 30s. Are you down there, Jordan? If anybody knew anything about this Kai Cenat, which obviously Mayor Adams didn't, they would have known. He's 13 to 18. His son is not going to be down there. And by the way, shouldn't he have gotten down there? No, it's not the social networking, because you tried this once before. You learned about the drill rappers, Pop Smoke down there on Flatlands and 82nd Street where I grew up. They got this mural to this Crip guy who was like at the forefront of drill rap, got killed in California. And so all of a sudden he said, we got to ban drill rappers. They're promoting violence. Then his son Jordan talks to him and says, Dad, you can't do that. So what does he do the next day? In a bipolar, manic depressive way, Eric Adams invited all these drill rappers, these degenerate drill rappers, to City Hall for a photo op. You see, this is the way he is. So we found out from Jeffrey Madre that the cops were actually tipped off a few hours before it started. The local 13th precinct sent a few cops, and then he said they were overwhelmed. Shame, shame, shame. Give the cops back their nightsticks. That's the first line of defense. Why do they not have their nightsticks? The mayor didn't comment on any of that. Instead, after blaming social networking, he blamed the parents.
Our children are being inundated by influencers, by those who consider themselves to be credible messengers. This young man yesterday, he had a substantial number of followers. People came from outside the city to be there, and I want us to, we're further looking into whether there's some even outside agitators. You don't come to get free Game Boys and bring smoke bombs and bring M80s and bring other disruptive items. And so we believe there were some outside influencers that may have attempted to aggravate this situation.
Well, first of all, let me critique what he said and what the police have said. This guy, this degenerate, Kai Cenat, said he was bringing Game Boys to give out. Justin, do we know how many Game Boys he had in that SUV? I bet you he probably had one for himself. First of all, there were no Game Boys. There's not one person who said that they got a Game Boy down there. Strike one. Strike two is you don't seem to understand that this guy had this pre-planned, premeditated, days before he's streaming To all of his degenerate followers, he's saying, look, we're not going to go to the Red Steps in Times Square, Duffy Square, too many cops. He did recon. And then he put out, I need all my New York N's. And you know what the N word is for? Out there. We're going to go crazy. So there are no outside influences. And he himself, Kai Cenat, he's just a year away from living in the Bronx. He went to a very good school. In fact, he's no dope. He's not a guy who's just going to say, you know what I mean, you know what I mean, you know what I mean. He went to a very good school in New York City. And then he got that McMansion in Atlanta, and he talks gibberish, and he makes millions. So how come he wasn't remanded to jail on Rikers Island, no bail? And then what Alvin Bragg could have done, or the ADA, is they could have caused him to forfeit his assets. Asset forfeiture. This is what the DEA does when they bust drug dealers. They seize all their assets, whether it's cars, property, whatever. If they're found innocent, they get it all back. If they don't, then it goes in to the Treasury. Now, think of all the hundreds of thousands of dollars of damage that these thugs and thugettes did at the direction of Kai Cenat. He's responsible. He's the Pied Piper. And we give him a disappearance ticket, Alvin Bragg? Why didn't you call for asset forfeiture like they do with drug dealers? Hold on to all of his equity. Give him fiscal pain. Let me tell you something. There are going to be other imitators now who are going to say, yo, man, I want to be like Kai, man. I can rock the world. I can be famous. All I got to do is assemble all my homies in one particular area. And as he said, again, I'm quoting the agitator, the disruptor, we're going to go crazy, bro. And they did. And there are no consequences. He gets a disappearance ticket, comes back August 18th. He'll be making more money, more money, more money. And we're blaming parents. We're blaming social networking instead of blaming the main culprit and having him feel fiscal pain. Take every nickel, dime, and penny he has